Tuned in, the signal's clear. Coming through Geocache Talk. A voice on the line I hear. Coming through Geocache Talk.
It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you are at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this show about the great sport of geocaching. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can be part of the adventure tonight in the chat room and participate with others as they watch the show. If you are listening later, please give it a like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app so that you can get all of the weekly Geocache Talk goodness.
Big thanks to the Treble Bugs for our opening and our featured patrons, Captain Howie, Fam Gustafson. I always mess that up.
Try that again.
Gustafson.
There you go.
Curiosity Girl, Glowworm 77, Kevin's to Betsy, Bounce Bounce, Poe Ann, Three Happy Campers, Team Ewart, Atreides 78723, and he has been rolling through a lot of counties in other states now since he finished Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Our new patrons, Mustard Devil, Audie Olson, Autumn EB, and Team Monroe's. If you'd like to become a patron, click on the Become a Patron little heart on the front page of the website. You like that? It's a red heart now. Show us some love. Link on the front page of the Geocache Talk website, or you can go over to patreon.com/Geocache Talk for more details. Patrons get the now famous blackout coin.
I went with gold tonight, so.
Ooh.
Nice. Yeah, the special gold one.
There's the original. You have the original, Chris?
I think I do.
You might have that one, I think. I know you got the others.
Yeah.
Other geocaching items during the year, bonus content, a lot of that coming up here shortly. Book club is going on.
Book club, before we move on from it, we met last week, and we put up 4, so they're a poll for which one we're going to do next, and it actually ended up with a 2-way tie between two books. So one of our books is going to be harder to get, so I don't want to go a long time into this, but for the patrons, we need to go back on there, and anybody that voted for First to Find as one of our books, we're not going to be able to get it in time, that one, the version of it, because apparently that's a very popular title for geocaching books. Imagine that.
Sure.
Go back and decide one of the other 2 leading ones, and we got to pick one of those 2. So we'll leave it open until tomorrow because we got to get started with our book, but it's a tie, and I don't want to pick between. I'm not going to be the tiebreaker. Anybody else that just happened to not vote, go vote. It's still up there. But we're down to On Trails and Death Row. So that's the 2 books left. Go vote, cast your vote for one of those, be the tiebreaker. And we're going to close it, let's say, tomorrow morning.
There you go. Perfect. We've also got invites to special events only for patrons, which let me finish out. Support level start at as little as Bison Tube level. That's just $3 a month. And we'll do news here in a moment. But let's jump right into show 213. So welcome to the show, Chris Mackey. Chris, thanks. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We've been meaning to do this for a while. It just didn't really work out. But we're glad it's worked out. We got a lot of cool stuff to talk about tonight. And coins and other stuff that we've talked about that I think will be fun. But first, we are going to do a little bit of news. We've got a couple things I want to mention. One is that, let's do the sponsor first.
Yep.
Sponsor tonight is
Ride in the Rain.
Ride in the Rain. And we have a code we're going to do again.
Promo again, so.
Yep. The promo code is back. Geocache. Whenever you buy anything from Ride in the Rain during September, you don't get 10% off. You don't get 20% off. You get 30% off your final total. Woohoo! So pretty excited about that. It's so great to partner with Riding in the Rain, and
You get to
oh, there you go.
the last time they ran it, I went stocked up with a bunch of these. This is just the ones I had on the shelf. I got wrong way.
Show those again. Those are great.
I got a bunch more. Oops, wrong way.
There you go.
So
And
I'm in all my caches now. I can't. I don't have any excuse to put like regular like Kleenex toilet paper in there. You know,
that's right on.
I've got so many ring logs now that yeah, that's the new standard. As a matter of fact, I even thank the cache owner every time I find one and it's got the waterproof paper now, because it's not the standard for everybody, and there's a huge difference. So
yeah,
I make sure I put a little thank you on my log for that. You know, I cut and paste the rest of it, of course, but put a little thank you.
That's for another show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. And if you work your order just perfectly, you can also get sort of bonus double prize
Oh yeah.
stuff. So sometimes if something's on sale, they'll put the additional 30% on top of it. So, go out to ritr.com, rightintherain.com, and check it out in the month of September, which I think starts tomorrow. Is that right? Am I right? May 31? Tuesday?
And then, yeah.
Tuesday.
Start soon.
Tuesday. That's all right. Okay, let's see. Lots of stuff.
Still want to call out for blogs.
Yes.
Surely in the midst of a worldwide pandemic and you're a geocacher, you have at least one story of something weird. So send it in. If you need some help, she wants to get your stories out there. You don't want Gary and I to have to write these stories. We talk enough as it is. So we want to hear your stories. Send the stories in. Do you have the email handy that you can put up?
They can send it to. They can send. You mean as far as where to send information?
Blogs, yeah.
They can send it obviously to us, but also you can send it to Angie, GeoJangie. See if I can find that.
I know we had it somewhere, but
yeah, where did I put that?
Directly to us works too. She can access it from there, but just send in your stories. That's the important thing. We really want to keep putting out other people's stories, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody has at least one creative story. If not, you're not caching enough and you're not going to events enough. If you have to, steal somebody else's story. It's okay. We won't check.
That's right.
Send us one. It doesn't really matter. We won't do an ID check for it. It's okay.
Yeah. Do like Kramer on the where he sold his stories, let other people use them for his own stories, so it's pretty funny. All right. So next is upcoming shows. Oh, we do have a lot more announcements that I can't get to. I'm just going to skip it. Otherwise, I'm going to say something wrong.
That's right. You can't spill the beans yet.
Because we've got a big thing going. Well, we got a big powwow on Wednesday, but we can't talk about that. Upcoming shows. So next week, we're going to be talking about stealth required. I will be on the road, so hopefully we won't have any problems with Wi-Fi, but if not, Jesse can handle it all by himself.
Yep.
And then in 2 weeks, we have on Randy, he goes with Randall H, but Randy Hodges is going to be on, talk about kayaking, geocaching, and beyond. He's got some great stories about kayaking, doing challenges, and great. He has a lot of great stories. He's got give him the chance to tell some stories. So story time with Randy in a couple of weeks, and then in 3 weeks, Doug McCrae will be back on the show. Doug is currently being featured on Netflix in a documentary called High Score. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't watched that yet on Netflix, it's well worth watching, especially because Doug's on there, and we love Doug. He's a great geocacher and a great friend of the show. But it is fascinating. Some great stories of how certain video games even came about. So yeah,
it's one of the top 10 most popular shows on Netflix right now too.
Yeah. So that's awesome. There we go. That's it for the news. And
September 22nd.
Yes, go ahead. You go for that.
Patron party. So for the patrons out there, we're going to get together September 22nd, 8 p.m. Central Time. And we're not even going to say what we're going to do yet, but we're going to have some fun. So that'll be a fun. That's one of those magical fifth Tuesdays of a month. So there's no point in having a break, right? We're all obsessed. We all do everything every day. So
we're on Tuesdays.
Hang out and have a party. So we're gonna have a party, patron party, September 22nd, 8 p.m. Central Time. More details will come out in the mail.
More details coming soon. People are wanting me to spill the beans. I'm not going to do that, but thank you.
As soon as we can, we will.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate that. Chat room is rolling. Some great stuff on there. Oh, the truck is on there. It said that Christian designed his path tag. So there you go.
Just finished that.
That's awesome. We'll have to talk about that a little bit here in a minute.
We have the date right. Somebody's asking 22nd or 29th. We have the date right on that 22nd, right? It's the
22nd. We wanted to allow for Gadget Talk to be separated completely, first of the month, end of the month. And then we wanted Puzzle Talk to have consecutive Tuesdays together. So we didn't want to split up because this month's September's Puzzle Talk are related to one another. They're sort of a part one, part two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we didn't want to split them up. So for September, it's the 3rd and the 31st are Gadget Talk because we like to give them because then it goes
every Tuesday. Let's just say it's every Tuesday.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Did I say that? Yeah, I just said that wrong, didn't I? Wait, hang on. I'll fix it. Hang on. I'm in September.
It's too much to keep up with.
The 1st and the 29th are Gadget Talk because we didn't want to split them up.
Right.
We didn't want to split up Puzzle Talk, so that's the 8th and 15th. So that left the 22nd for
the party.
Patron party. There, I fixed it.
And who knows? By the 22nd, we could reveal some really big news, possibly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There'll be big news before that. So
it'll either be big news or big flop. One of those two. Either one's funny, so it's great.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So Derek's jumping in. Yes, he's trying to remind. The first is Gadget Talk.
That's right.
And Tom is the next two puzzle calls. Bring snacks and quarters. Yeah, I'm not sure why that.
Okay, so now that we've thoroughly confused everybody with our top podcasting, let's. Why don't we actually involve our guest? Let's
get into it. I'm sure Chris is enjoying this to an extent. I mean,
this is fun.
He's totally awed by what's behind the curtain. He is.
I'm actually. Well, it's kind of funny. My background is actually in broadcast television, so this is. I've been around this a little bit. Usually on the other side of the camera, though.
Right. So you know how people are like him and Derek both know how it's done right, so you can see how it's not done right with us. So perfect. You can watch the train wreck
if you got content.
Yeah, that's right. As it slowly comes off the rails, you can watch it tumble down.
Right.
Check that out. Look at that thing. It's going down.
Still entertaining.
Still entertaining. Exactly.
There you go.
That's what we're here for. All right. So Chris, before we get into, because people are going to want to ask, and if you want to ask questions, please join in the chat room and ask your questions. Functional chaos. I love it. That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
That's a great way to put it, by the way. So
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some other things because I find them interesting as well about yourself. You've been geocaching how long do you think now?
I started in the fall of 2005 by accident.
By accident. I know. I love that.
Accident. That's usually how it starts.
Tell that story real fast because it's great.
So I can say I originally started doing a lot of mountaineering with a friend of mine, Eric Fox. And so we were constantly going kind of out in the middle of nowhere. and my parents were concerned about us getting back from the middle of nowhere. So they bought me a GPS, and it's still my favorite GPS. It's lovingly called the Brick.
Wow, look at that thing.
And it's
definitely dangerous. Does it put off radiation? I mean, is that thing okay?
This is a Garmin. It runs on 4 AA's, and it's the fastest thing ever, and the most accurate thing I've ever used. Generally, if your cords are good, you can stand at ground zero and fall and touch the cache wherever it is. It's really been great. And it's funny, I guess they stopped making them a long time ago. Mm-hmm. But at one of the geocaching events, someone saw it clipped to my bag, and it was one of the Garmin people that were there.
Oh, wow.
And they mentioned, they're like, how did you get a hold of that? And they're like, only the employees get those.
Oh, really?
See, apparently they were still making them, but not for everybody else.
Wow.
Or at least that's the way it sounded to me. So they thought that was pretty cool that I still had one that functioned. I'm like, this is the only one I ever had. But we got this one. It was a used unit from a soldier who had gone overseas to Germany, didn't speak the local language. And so he would just waypoint the base and start walking. Because if nothing else, he could find his way back to where he started.
Right.
And so just using his breadcrumbs. And so when we started caching, we had no idea, what how it worked, what it could do. And so I just kind of Googled, how to use a GPS. And I found this great forum that had lots of friendly people that were really super helpful about trying to give you some hints about what to do and things to look for and functions to try to utilize. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that's great. So I took a bunch of notes, wrote it down. And then he and I went off on with our families up to Alaska, did 13 days of hiking. And they came back. And when we got back, he says, you know what? We should look up that caching thing, that geocaching thing, after we had just gone up, all over. And so we finally looked it up. We kept talking about, we should. And then never did. And then someone asked Fox if he was the Mountain Boys. And he said, I have no idea what you're talking about. He's in the Mountain Boys. And he's at the geocaching. He said, I have no idea. He said, oh, wait a minute. I have heard of that, but I don't know what you're talking about. They said, well, on the mountain right behind your farm, there's one of those treasure boxes. Right. So he called me up after work and said, hey, what is this? Do you remember? And I said, hey, it's that thing I bookmarked. I said, we'll have to check it out. So we decided we were going to check it out. And we said, oh, this is pretty cool when we started reading about it. Of course, you did not read all the directions ever, because you get excited about something, you just got to decide to go do it. And so for the first day out, we immediately DNF'd.
Sounds like somebody I know. I'm not sure who that.
I don't know who you're looking at. Come on now.
So we went and looked for one, and we dug down about a foot in the snow and had no luck finding that one. We said, well, maybe we're doing it wrong. Let's go find an easier one. So we said, look for the smaller black box. That must be easier. Mm. So we went and looked for one of those, and we couldn't find that one either. We're like, wow, we're really bad at this, Let's go for the easiest one, the little tiny black box. That'll be the easiest one.
That's even harder.
We spent the next 2.5 hours in 100-foot by 50-foot wedge of park space in front of the front door of the police station, trying to be subtle.
Right, trying.
And we said, let's give it 15 minutes. If we can't find it, we just have to admit that we're really bad at this. Let's just go home. This is getting ridiculous. My hands are frozen. My feet are frozen. Let's just go. Well, we gave it a good 20 minutes, and then we called it. And they said, this is just not for us. And we went to go get in the car. As we go to get in the car, he looks down. He says, you don't think this is it, do you? He said, one of the parking meters was missing, and there's a little gray 35 millimeter film canister with a G on the top of it sitting in the top of that post where we parked our car.
Where you parked, right?
Yeah. So, of course, we retrieved it. We signed it. We're grinning at each other,
Yeah.
And thinking, we are so good at this. We're going to rock this.
We are gods at this.
Oh, we felt so cool. It was so terrible. I mean, we look back and we laugh, but we just thought that was the greatest thing ever. Like, this is the best. Let's go do this. And
great.
That's kind of how it started. And from there, it just went downhill.
Right.
we didn't get better for a long time. So we have this beautiful unit that has all these abilities.
Right.
but we didn't know how to use them, and I never did find a user manual for it.
Right.
We spent the next, I think, about 10 months where we would take turns. Someone would hold the fisheye compass, and someone would hold the GPS.
Right.
And you'd watch the raw data jump up and down and left and right, and we would figure out where to go by watching that data spin across, just zipping through. And it's amazing. You actually, after a while, you start to get it. And we thought we were getting pretty good at it. And then the first time we ever went caching with other people, they're like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
They said, "Why don't you turn on the little black arrow?" We said, "What little black arrow?"
There's a black arrow on this thing?
What are you talking about? They're like, "Here, click, click." And then we felt about that big.
That's
But it was a good time. But I mean, it was kind of the story of every time we met another cacher, something else like that kind of amazing happened. Over the course of the next year, we several times would run into cachers. And those first 2 caches that we DNF'd, we ended up finding people who had found them. And it turned out the first one was a stage that was missing, but someone had found the final. So they gave us the stages 2 and 3 to go complete it. So we went back and found those and turned those frownies into smileys. Right. And that was pretty cool. So we ended up finding all 3 of the first 3 that we looked for in time, but only after we really met the community, and that changed everything.
That is awesome. No, that is awesome. So a couple other stories, and then we'll get into all the craziness about coins that I want to hear about, and I'm sure everybody else also wants to hear some stories about that. But I always love hearing about people who have done the ET Highway, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I think it's fascinating. Jesse and I are still planning on. We definitely want to do that.
We're going to make a trip there at some point.
We're going to do it, the 2 of us, and hopefully we'll get some more. We'll recruit some more people, because now we're hearing we could do them. Is it 15 seconds? Is that what I hear?
47 seconds was our record from cache to cache. And you need good suspension and good brakes and good acceleration. But it involved 3 guys, and you would rotate. The one guy would jump out and run to grab the cache. The other guy was pre-signing the log for the cache that would go in the next, so you actually can rotate them as you go. Right. So, someone would go diving through the cactus, getting stuck with cactuses, and look for it in a pile of rocks and hopefully not get stung by anything. Run back to the car, dive in, and as he dives in, throws it to the guy that's in the back seat, or throws it down so he can start signing it. The guy in the back seat, meanwhile, is opening up his door as you're accelerating down the road. You slam on the brakes, sand goes everywhere. He piles out and goes to find the next one while you're signing it. And the guy guy behind the wheel is just 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot on the gas, gunning it, and then boom, you're gone, and you go do another one. And it's funny. There were a number of places when you're out there where there's kind of like a road next to the highway where it's a dirt road, and you'll see like bumpers and like literally like the plastic bumpers, front and back bumpers laying there, quarter panels laying there. You'll see exhaust pieces everywhere, exhaust brackets laying all over the place. And you're not the only person who's done this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, if someone says take the doors off the Jeep, that would have been so much easier. Mm-hmm. We had a good time. I've heard someone said they did it in a minivan with a team of people, and it was similar to that, where it was like, it was go, go, go. But we kept shaving off a few seconds each time. And then eventually we got it to where, we were getting it down to under a minute, and we did 200 or 300 of them like that. And then we were just so exhausted. We said, let's go do some geo art. And then we were just driving around in the desert.
That's awesome.
How long did you spend out there?
Well, we were out there for Geocoin Fest Vegas. So we were out there for 2 or 3 days. But for the ET, we went out like at first at the crack of dawn, and then we came home or back to Vegas, to the hotel. It was about 11. And we were trying to get back because we were going to meet some of the other cashers at the bar and to talk about what we've been doing that day. And as we were roaring back to town trying to make it in a hurry, we just flying. I mean, there's just straight roads and go as fast as you want type thing out there. And we were just roaring down the road, and all of a sudden there was a flash of light, and a quick swerve and, steady the car. And we said, what was that? And he said, that was a cow in the middle of the road. There's no fences. They just walked back and forth on the highway. And we weren't really aware of just how loose they were. So we all laughed and we said, well, that's the man upstairs telling you to slow it down. So we slowed it down a little bit. We made it back in one piece. So
plow into that cow and you'd have found that how much of car
that would have been a bad day.
Yeah. Ooh.
But it's beautiful out there. We saw we got to see a bunch of like old pictographs and things like that. We found a few of those sites. There's a few caches out there that will really show you stuff you could, you'd never imagine, And I think that's the great thing about caching is that it showed me all kinds of little things I'd only heard stories of or seen a picture in a magazine. And then next thing you know, you're there in person looking at something, 1,000-year-old writing on a wall, and it's firsthand. That's where it's at. That's the magic of caching for me is
that's very cool.
Doing that and being with a community of people like-minded,
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
So let's we'll steer now the conversation toward coins. We are going to talk a lot about that. We want to talk about some other stuff to do tonight, but let's do kind of a combo one, which was I guess we were trying to find your first Geocoin was a cache called Melissa.
Right. Yeah. So there was a coin called Melissa that had come up. Actually, it was Christmas Eve or the morning of Christmas Eve. And so we had, we both had our family, gatherings happening that day. So we had a number of things that were going on, but I got the early morning call from Fox and he said, hey, there's a coin. It's here. It's maybe 6-8 miles away, but it's out there and it's in a cache and it's a multi-cache. So, how hard could it be?
Right.
And I said, there's a big storm rolling in. He said, if we go now, we'll get there and we'll get out before the storm hits. And I said, yeah, we'll just have to go fast. And he said, okay. He said, I'll meet you down there. And sure enough, we found the parking spot. And then we looked around and realized we're at the bottom of a mountain looking up the side.
Right.
And going, oh boy. So turned out it was a 5-part multi-cache. There was snow on top of the mountain. So, we were both in light hikers. I think he had like low hikers and I had mid hikers and jeans and sweatshirts, no coats, no hats, no gloves. We're just like, oh, we'll go fast. We'll stay warm. And then the wind starts up and then the snow starts coming down and its squalls start hitting and we're slogging back and forth. And the guy who set up this cache, Rich and Nipa, he's fantastic. He's kind of like set the bar for awesome caches in our area.
Cool.
Turned it into like a 5-pointed star where you had to keep going over the mountain and back down the other side to find each of the points.
Wow.
And when we got to the point where we're running out of light because it's gotten dark, the days are short, snow is really getting bad, and he's got the unit, the brick, and I've got the fisheye lens. So I'm looking at the fisheye lens just walking, and he's got the unit, and he says, stop. And I said, what's up? And I look back, and I couldn't see anything. It's just a squall of snow coming in at me. He said, stop. He said, the numbers are catching up. He said, they were a little slow. I think the machine's cold. So I'm stopped, and I'm waiting. He said, okay, it's only about 10 feet from me, or about 10 feet from you, 10 feet from me. We're about 20 feet apart. And I said, okay, so wait a second. And we're looking around. And all of a sudden he says, there it is. And I said, what? He said, that rock, it's upside down. I said, what are you talking about? I said, the lichen is upside down. I said, how can you see that? He said, how do you not? But he's just a guy that spends every day hiking.
Right.
And he's like, he spotted, he's like, it just looks like a stop sign. I said, okay, great. And I, go to take my backpack off and I look around. I'm standing on the edge of a cliff with about 180-foot drop.
Dang.
So when he said stop and I'm walking into the squall looking down, that old the old original shirt design where it said focus.
Yes.
Just like branded in my head after that,
Oh my gosh.
But we found this box. So we're standing there, we're wet, we're shivering, we're like, soaked all the way up to our, past our knees from this between slogging through the water and the creeks and the snow. And cracks open that crisp ammo can in the woods, makes that beautiful pop.
Yes.
And we're like, oh, it's in here. We start going through and then we found it and we were like, oh, it is beautiful. It was like like fresh minted from gold, you know, and we're holding it up in the light, we're taking pictures of it. Oh, I mean,
Clouds parted a little bit.
Sunshine comes down. Like it's
Right.
that kind of moment.
Yeah.
Years later, I look back at the pictures and I laugh and I laugh. It was this dingy, dirty USA 2005 generic Geocoin, but it was the only coin we'd ever seen. So it was still the coolest coin we'd ever seen, and it was amazing.
That's
the last
incredible.
time I saw it, it was headed for Russia. It got lost somewhere in Northern Europe, but it'll show up again somewhere.
Oh wow!
It's amazing how long they'll disappear and then show up again. I've had one coin disappear for 2 4-year stints and show up again.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. Yep. The first time it was in someone's bag who had accidentally left her caching bag at one cache, went to go find another cache, realized she forgot her swag bag, ran back, and the bag's gone.
Wow.
And then just disappeared. And then 4 years later, it just showed up in a cache with no explanation.
Wow.
And then that same coin disappeared maybe a year or two after that. And then 4 years later again, I got a message said, "Hey, I found your coin. It was in a kid's toy box at a garage sale. I'm going to throw it in a local cache." And it started traveling again, you know.
Dang.
So, you know, it happens. It ties in well with the whole designing coins thing. I'll get to that later, but
yeah,
it's that moment was kind of something cool that I didn't really realize how important that moment was until later.
No, that's very true. You know, we won't have time tonight really talk too much about, but coins in caches, at least down in my neck of the woods, you don't find a coin in a cache anymore.
Very rarely.
Not much.
There are not many. Path tags, yes, I see those periodically, but coins, maybe for the most part, people, you know, if you put it out in the wild, you can't keep it. I mean, I guess people do though. That's the sad part, I guess.
You see proxy coins out a lot, but
proxy coins is a great idea to do.
I mean, that was kind of birthed from. I think there was this explosion when that it was a GeoMate Junior or something came out that was like those preloaded in caches, and you all of a sudden had this massive influx of people who came in who thought finding a coin was treasure to keep.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had long conversations with people who found it and just thought that, oh, I found the prize, and just never had been introduced to the idea of a traveler and didn't understand that coins and travel bugs had a purpose. So,
Marcellus is along for the ride tonight. Hey, Marcellus, man's been traveling a lot, but he says he put a coin in a cache a year ago. Yep, and then disappeared.
Yep.
Oh, Adam was over in Georgia a couple days ago. That's cool. Saw one in a Travel Bug hotel. That's awesome. Yeah.
You do still see them every once in a while, but definitely it's more tags and stuff than, you know.
The most successful travelers I had made a joke when it started to become a thing that coins were disappearing quickly. And I said, I'm taking measures to secure my coins. And I drilled holes in them and attached bicycle locks.
Oh, wow.
And set them loose. And I said, now they're secure. And that was a big joke. But those ones with the locks actually traveled quite well. With one exception, which was hilarious because the guy who found it, it was his coin, or it was one of his that I had traded for.
Right.
And he found it with the lock on it. That was the Mountain Man brick. Right. And he was so tickled when he saw that. He just I just put that back on the mantle with the other ones. I'm like, I said, the story is better than the cost of the coin. I'm like, that's great. I have to get another coin out just because I get to laugh at that. You know, the idea that is sitting in someone's house on display.
The fact that you drove a hole into a coin and then sent it out is like sacrilege for some people, you know.
I've done a couple where I cut coins in half just to see how they're made. And the look of horror on people's faces when they see them in hand. How could you?
How could you do that?
But I had to see, you know.
Yeah.
And you have to understand the product in a way that's pretty painful sometimes. I have an idea for a coin I want to do. I've talked with some other people about doing it, and it's going to involve purposely hurting coins, but hopefully it will make each one unique in a cool way. So
we'll
see how that works out.
Cool. So, without going into, because we got a lot to talk, 'cause I want to talk about a lot of specifics tonight about not necessarily detail of laminations and stuff like that, but I kind of want to get more into what's possible, what's not possible, what you have seen that has really inspired you, and getting some of those, because I got several coins in front of me I want to show, and we'll talk about several of those. But just for people who don't know, how did you kind of get started in coins, and then I guess also path tags?
That's kind of a funny story. Well, we found Melissa, and we thought that is the coolest thing ever, And I forget how we found out that there were coins out there. I don't know if it was random talk or something, but once we found out the coins were a thing, I got on the Geocoin forums and found out there are people making these things, and it was the coolest thing. It was. I was still very new at this point. We'd only been at it for 2 or 3 months, and I saw what it took to make a coin and the cost of it. And I said, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. It's expensive. That's, who would spend that much money on a hobby?
Right. Come on.
Kind of a number of things happened all at once. I found people who had the means to make a coin, but not necessarily the design skill. And so I took a chance helping those people make their own coin for the first time. And so that was kind of like, it was a learning experience for me, and it was a way for them to get design. And I was reaching a point in my life where I was working full time as a regular advertising graphics designer. So you're putting in 14 hours a day or more. And so you go home and you don't feel like doing artwork. But coins was something completely different. It was cool. It was fun. It was just as a personal favor. So it wasn't like it was really work. And I found that I just kind of loved doing that again, because I kind of refound the love for design. But I found people who needed help, and I had the ability to help them. I didn't have the money to make a coin, but it gave me free experience building a coin. And so I got a couple chances to design coins that way. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to figure out how to make my own coin and how to make one better and cheaper. I didn't like that you couldn't get gradations of color because everything is an enamel fill. So it had to be a solid color. You couldn't have this and you couldn't have that. And you had to have metal between every color. And I didn't like all those things because there were all these, what I thought of as limitations.
Right.
And so I was asking dozens and dozens of questions a day on the forums, and everybody's super cool about answering because we're all excited about the same thing.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of really specific questions, and someone said, hey, here's an email of a guy kind of knows everything about coins. Just ask him some of this stuff because he'll probably give you the best answers. He knows the most. And so they gave me this guy's email, and I sent him a bunch of questions, and he answered me. I sent him a bunch more, and I answered. And I'm just firing him off at this guy for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I finally came up with a way to build my own coin where it was a printed coin that was the printed faces would be held inside of an acrylic coin case, like the ones you put precious coins in, just for putting them on display. And then I would make those trackable and send them out. And so I had this idea, and I kind of worked it out to where, hey, I think this is going to look pretty cool. And so this guy who had answered all these questions, I'm pestering him and pestering him, pestering him. He said, hey, it sounds like a great idea. Send me one when you're done. And he said, I'll send you one of my, personal tokens. And so I sent some off, and I forgot all about it. And I'm excited about my new coins that I'm putting out, these acrylic, discs or tokens or whatever.
Right.
And a couple weeks later, I get a package in the mail, and I'm trying to think, who would send me a package from Washington? I don't recognize the name. And I have family out there, but it wasn't anybody I recognized. So I tore it and poured out a couple mountain bike tokens.
Oh.
Here I'm Ding Dong and John the whole time.
Mountain bike.
I'm like, could it have been any more embarrassing that I'm everything I'm complaining about, as far as cost and what it takes to make the coin, they're all the things that he celebrates and loves. And I'm just, there's got to be a better way. This is a terrible idea.
Right.
Oops.
But it was after building a couple of those coins for other people, I realized this is just, I don't care what it takes. We got to do it. And so Fox put up half and I put up half, and we just made our own coin.
Wow.
and we just jumped in it. And so we made a number of designs that we liked, and we refined those down to just the two sides that we were going to go with, which ended up being the Fox and the Hound coin.
Right.
And we went with it. We had tremendous success. We got to make lots of trades, and it was great because so when you have that coin, you're not just a geocacher anymore. Now you're a geocacher with a personal coin. It's a whole nother level of excitement, enthusiasm, a group within the group that has an even higher level of sort of fervor for this finding treasure. And I was just addicted to the whole idea. I mean, everything about it. That was, I mean, I would fall asleep and wake up dreaming about coins and writing down ideas and stuff like this. It's just, it took over. And it was exciting, and it still is. And I think that's one of the amazing things, 15 years later, it's still exciting.
Still exciting. Which
is pretty wild. But I think that was a big part of what made it happen. I found my love of doing art for the sake of art again. Right. And I had a bunch of extra ideas that I didn't use for my own coin. Right. So I went to the guys who helped me do it, who was, at the time it was personal coins, but I didn't know that they did the Geocoin Club and had the coin store. Yeah. So I said, hey, I have a bunch of, I just heard that you guys are also involved in this other stuff. I have a bunch of other designs. Or any interest in these other designs? And they will show us what you got. Yeah. So I showed them and they said, we love them. What do you want? And I said, I want to see them turn into coins. There we go. But what do you want for the design? I'm like,
how much?
Coins. So I did designs once in a while for coins, and I was like, this was great. I mean, I went from, my wife was like, like any hobby I have, she's like, if you can find a way to, play your hobby and not break the bank or, cost the house money, go, do whatever you have to do to afford your hobby. So I said, well, now I don't even have to buy coins. I can trade coins. I could trade them to, if I can't get the coin I want, I could trade it to so-and-so who gets it from so-and-so. So I got into the world of coin trading. And then that's again, that's kind of all these things converged at the same time. And that was it. I was hip deep in it and I haven't looked back. Wow. I still love the excitement of it all the time. I think personal coins are always going to be a step above. And then personal coins that have a handmade touch of some kind are a step above that. Right. And so, I mean, one of my favorites still is a cross-stitched piece of cloth, was Cash and Carry number 7, and that's still one of my favorite, coins, I guess if you call it, or a memento. Right. There's so many cool things out there, but I love the ones that have a personal touch, something that somebody put some real thought into,
Those are the ones you definitely treasure over all the other ones in your collection for sure.
They do. Yeah. And someone said early on, they said it has to resonate with you. And I didn't quite understand how important that statement was. But when you find a coin that resonates with something that's personal to you, that's it. Like whatever it takes to get it, that's what you're going to go through. Like that's the one I have to have. And it's funny. I've designed a lot of coins where I never got one. Really? Well, sometimes it's a mystery coin. And so part of that is, and the mystery stays a mystery. So sometimes I've gotten them, sometimes I haven't. Sometimes I did it as part of a job. Okay. And I meant to go to the event and didn't get to the event. So I'm like, oh, well, I'll get one sooner or later. Yeah. People have always been very, very generous about giving you a coin or getting you a coin, even if it's just a sample. And everyone has really been good about that over the years. I've got almost probably 90 to 95% of them, but there's a number of them that are not out there. And I've had people ask me like, how could you not make that part of the deal? And I'm like, well, because it's their coin. It's a personal coin. Right. If part of the payment is taking something that's personal to them, that just doesn't feel right. So I said, if they want to give you one, that's different. Or I'll trade you for one of mine. That's different. But I said, if it's a demand for something that's personal, I feel there's somehow that takes away from the experience. So sometimes you don't get those, but then those become the goals I now set for myself to go find those ones that I don't have yet. Oh, wow. And so for me, I mean, I'm a little spoiled in that I have such an access to coins. Yeah. So that when I don't have something, I get that same thrill of excitement finding that, that piece that's missing from the collection. That somebody who's trying to find that first one, that's excitement for them. So it regenerates that for me, and that's really cool. That's a big part of the fun.
Yeah.
So.
Because we won't have time not to get into, but I noticed that, well, we were able to, and we're so appreciative of your donations to the GT stash that we did a couple of years ago. That was a big deal. We were putting in, Jesse and I talked about, we wanted there to be some serious prizes in the GT stash, not just, generic stuff you can get at Walmart or something. We wanted it to really be something spectacular. And so, when you and I talked about it and you were like, oh, I got some stuff I can send you. And you sent me these coins. I mean, like the David Jones locker.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that you sent in the little cards the little brochures that went with them.
Right. To tell the story of what's in there.
Yeah. Those were incredible. Now, and those were, give me the right phrase. They're not artist renditions. They're artist
editions.
Artist editions. Okay.
Yeah. And that's actually something that came back from that first story where I was kind of like, coins?
Yeah.
They said, well, listen, you're going to do something cool like that for us. If you really just want coins, they said, we'll give you your own version or something. We'll call it the artist edition or something. And I was like, all right, great. I didn't know what it meant. But that sounds cool. So I had a coin and I said, that's the artist edition. And almost immediately people said, you can't just make up a name for that. You can't just say it's an artist edition. And I said, well, they said it's an artist edition. That's what it is. And so there became these long debates in these forums where we spent a lot of time talking about what makes it an artist edition. I said, well, it's only available from the artist. Right. And part of it was that it needed to be a gift or somehow, or and that I've never sold an artist edition. I've always donated them or given them away or traded them away or tried to find some way to keep that specialness to them, at least for me. Yeah. And it's geocaching. Everybody plays it the way they want to play. But for me, that's one of the things I try to maintain so that getting an artist edition from my work, should mean something, because that's the only way to get it. And I was funny. I wanted to say something earlier when you guys were talking about the whole path tags thing.
Yeah.
Getting coins for me is easy. Getting path tags is impossible.
Really?
Path tags are in hand with a handshake or a hug. Yeah. And that's always been the way it is. The only way to get it is if you met me in person, to get a path tag. And I said, because I've always had so many coins, I've been able to trade. Yeah. And it was a little more wheeling, dealing, freewheeling type, mentality. I wanted something that was really only way to get it was to meet me in person. So there were people that had asked me for years and years. I remember meeting Sweet Life for the first time at an event. After 4 or 5 years, she'd been trying to find one of my tags, and I held one aside. I said, someday I'll meet her. And I just kept putting it in my box whenever I went to a big event. And eventually I did meet her. And then meeting her and giving that, path tag touring in person. Yeah. That was what made that special. And so for me, that's the artist editions are the same way. I want them to have a meaning beyond being just another version of the coin.
No, that is awesome. So let's talk about. Go ahead. I was saying I want to talk about some of these coins and get your impressions of them.
We can't talk about coins all night and not show any.
No, we're going to show and tell for sure. I mean, that was part of this whole thing. But and also, I think one of the things is that I really want to kind of talk about the possibilities and because I think some people as we go through the rest of tonight, I think that some people think that it's out of reach, that they could never do a coin, that kind of thing. And I think things have changed over time now where you can get a coin made. I mean, potentially, you're not going to make one, you might want to save up, might be, you do one coin, every few years, but if you want one,
it's one of the things I hear a lot, and I go to the the Geocoin conventions and I talk about it, but more importantly at the smaller get-togethers we talk about it. One of the probably the most common things is I would love to make a coin, but I can't afford it. And I said, well, you could afford to come to this event. So,
Right.
how bad is it? And they said, well, because I know what I want, but what I want is going to cost this much. And I said, well, how do you know? What do you plan to do with your coin? Right. And that might be maybe the most important coin question anybody needs to ask themselves if they're going to make a coin for the first time. What do you want your coin to do? What do you plan to do with it? Are you only giving it to friends? Are you only trading it from person to person? Do you fully expect it to go out into the world and travel? And does it need to have an icon? Does it need to have these things? And do you need, if you're making a batch of coins, do all of them need to be trackable or just some of them?
Right.
When you really start thinking about what you want to do with that coin, it changes the dynamic immediately. And when that dynamic changes, your price changes too. So, instead of, most average coin runs nowadays are probably 200 coins. And a lot of times I have this question, what if I only want to make like 10 or 15 coins? Wouldn't that be less expensive? And the answer is no. It will probably cost the same as having a couple hundred coins made.
Yeah.
But the reason why is when you pay for a coin to be made, it's not so much the cost of stamping out the coin. It's all the work that went up to the moment they started stamping it out.
Right.
So it's a machine process. They have to set it up. So it's like, building the first, automobile of any new design is very, very expensive. But every time they make another one, that first one got less expensive because you're stretching out the cost of building it over those coins. So say your dies, the dies you want to, if you have a set of 2D dies, an average coin might run $150 to $200 for a set of dies.
Right.
Well, if you made one coin, your die fees were $200 for that coin.
Right.
If you made 200 coins, your die fees were $1 per coin.
Right.
So it sets it up. You got to remember, somewhere there's a mint, a factory that has stopped an entire production line just for you. And they've set it all up to make your coin. And once that machine starts running, it can pop, 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 making those coins because mechanical process. But that first coin, all the work went into getting that first coin to work. And so that's, I think, the idea that you can do more or do less and save money isn't really realistic.
Right.
And at the same time, what do you plan to do with it? Is it a gift? It doesn't need to be trackable. Tracking on the edge of a coin is a huge thing. Yes, second run of the same coin is always cheaper.
Because they have the die.
Yeah, because you've already paid for all of that setup fee.
So hang on, right.
The artist at the coins is not being, the artist at the mint is not redoing the art. They have all the parts and pieces. The usual thing is they will hold your molds on a shelf with your name on them for up to 3 years. Right. If you don't use them within 3 years, they'll melt them down again.
Right.
But, if you make even just a few of them within 3 years, you can get more. No, they're not all made in China. There are a couple mints. There is the Alaska mint. A lot of us older coiners have seen the Alaska coin mints, the coins that they made that were for hanging on your Christmas tree. Mm-hmm. They do make them in the U.S. The difference, if I understand it correctly, is it's about 5.5 times the expense to make it in the U.S. So yes, you can make it, but it's more expensive.
Right.
But and it's a different process too. But I think there's more of that coming this way. I've seen more medallions and stuff. There's more talk, through trade circles that stuff is starting to be made here again, and they're trying to get that price back down.
Right.
But right now, most of it's still being made overseas.
The process, and we'll have to come back and do this some other time, another time to get more into a lot of the more details because it's fascinating to me. It reminds me when I heard you tell one time the story about how they're made. It reminds me of literally what they did back, like Roman coins. The way they made them is they would make the die and they would take and hammer that thing as hard as they could put the impression onto that coin with the die. That's basically kind of what they do. They'll take and they'll smash at several miles per hour, right?
Right. So the coin, the actual word coin, comes from the Latin phrase, Latin root cunis. And the cunis was that metal wedge that they put against the liquid metal and they smacked it with a hammer to leave that indentation. So a lot of times we kind of you see these like pirate treasure coins where they have the kind of weird edge on it.
Yeah.
And I know you don't really always hear the story behind it, but what it was is they would measure out in a liquid pan and heat it up, the silver or the gold. Right. But it was a liquid measurement. It's a very specific amount. And so you would have an indentation in stone or metal, and they would pour it in there, and they would put the stamp on top and smack it. And some of it would kind of well out, in an ununiform shape around the edge.
Right.
So you would have this roundish stamp that wasn't always in the middle of the coin, and you'd have this kind of oblong, edges that go around it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that's where that comes from, that unusual idea. But the idea of coins as being round, I think was kind of an odd idea. It didn't. I think that was a later thing when we started melting metal. Before that, a lot of them were carved. One of the oldest coins that they know was used as a monetary value was actually in the shape of a small dolphin, and they were made of brass or bronze. And those were used for trade. They were basically little ingots in the shape of fish.
Right. Wow.
Funny because we've kind of come full circle, right? Half the coins you see out there are not shaped like circles anymore.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we had some great talks about. Is it a coin if it's not coined, if it's not stamped? Is an injection molded coin the same as a stamped coin?
So
does it have to be metal?
That's
a whole can of worms right there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Doesn't have to be round. This is one of my favorite coins, and not just because Jesse's on the show, but this one was 14er, which was my first mega. Mm-hmm. I think I had a great time. I hope Jesse had a great time.
Yeah. I know you had a great time meeting a lot of people.
I know you had a lot going on.
And we'll not talk about behind the scenes.
I was there, but I didn't meet you guys.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I had no idea, but I did enjoy Red Rocks. That was pretty amazing.
Oh yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. No, it was great. To be honest, I really was. But the cool thing is the fact that it's not round. It's got these protruding parts to it.
And not even close to the size of a coin either. There's no large that you normally see, right? That's like almost a belt buckle.
Compared to our coin, it's enormous. I mean, it's a huge.
And your coin's a pretty good sized coin.
Yeah. Yeah, we got in our. Oh, this one's pretty good size.
Yeah, I mean, that's like your inside diameter is like 1.75, right? Like 2 inches at the points.
Oh yeah, because we have points on them. You're right.
Yeah. Is there an actual standard Geocoin size anymore? I mean, is there one that was standard for a while? I mean, I barely around one anymore, but still.
So when I started, the standard was everybody had a 1.5. That was kind of the standard. Mm-hmm. And then for some like these events or special projects, you would get somebody who just went nuts and made a 1 3/4.
Yeah.
And then enough people went nuts and made 1 3/4 that people started making all of them 1 3/4. And now it's, someone gets nuts and makes a 2 inch. And so people started making a lot of 2 inches, but it has kind of
it's a huge
held
coin.
Around the 1.75 for personals and commercial coins. Yeah. But there are ones, especially if they're an oblong shape, where you do get them a bit bigger.
Is that a carryover from like military challenge coins?
I don't think so, because most of those I still see are still around 1.5 to 1 3/4. Okay. I was surprised. I had been asked at one point if I'd ever designed any, and I have done some for fire departments and police departments and stuff like that, but I never really got into do the military ones yet. I think it's just opportunity hasn't met preparedness, but eventually it might get there. But yeah, I think the I think the average coin is probably 1 3/4 right now. That's kind of like the normal if such a thing exists.
So Ryan is jumping the gun. I guess he didn't know I was going to talk about this, but we did want to talk about things that coins can do, which is that's almost for a whole other show, but we're going to talk about it tonight because it's part of it. But you can have something like the Mocha coin and it spins. Yay! Makes noise. There's for the audio listeners, I'm spinning the coin.
Yeah, that particular coin was to highlight, as you rotated it, was to highlight each of the different areas that you could go to in and around Moga.
Right. Different parts of it.
Because I learned, and that kind of leads into another thing. A big part of my fascination with coins is learning about something new with each coin. There's an enormous amount of research that sometimes goes into, designing a new one, or sometimes just shared with me on a new one.
And I mean, that's a coin, but it's hard to even call that a coin anymore, right? It's almost like a gadget.
It is kind of a gadget.
You don't have spinning parts.
Hey, Jesse, there's an Earth cache at that part.
Yeah.
We've been there. Yeah, I mean.
Oh yeah, we have, haven't we? That's right.
Yeah, that's the Earth cache we were at.
I never noticed that. And I have that coin over there.
Yeah, that's the Earth cache we went to together.
Well, that's that resonates thing we were talking about.
Right.
There's something for everyone.
Yeah. But I didn't even think about it until you said that earlier, though, that the difference between the two, the personal coins versus the ones that you buy. I mean, the ones that you buy at Mega is still, it's an event. You went to it. It's commemorative and everything else. But if you have somebody hand you a coin that they made for themselves, that definitely is a whole nother level up. So,
yeah, there's some really cool stuff out there. If people who have known me for a while know that I was a madman for the Habercash coin. There are very few of them out there. They were all handmade. A ball peen hammer and a Dremel. This guy beat these things into submission. You start with a small slug of brass, and he did beautiful work. And it was just, I had always wanted one of his pieces because they're amazing work. It's really beautiful hand art. And it took many, many years, and I tried to talk a lot of people out of their coins, and I had a lot of good trades offered for, to try to get one. But people know what they have, and I think other people felt the same way I did about how special they were. And I did finally, through the magic of the caching community, finally get one. And it's I would share it, but it's actually, I'm working from the house during this whole COVID thing, so it's down at the studio on the wall. It's the only piece that hangs in my case of my own work that isn't my work, but it's still so cool. I'm like, that's got to be in there because people are going to ask, what is that?
And
here's a really good example of a coin. This is a personal piece from D22, and
so fish shaped. Is it brass? It's got a brass look to it.
Yeah, it's a solid piece of brass, and it's just been cut out. Probably with a jewel saw or on a jewel blade on a bandsaw. I don't know if I can do this where I don't know how to do this, the magic trick where there it is.
Got it.
But it's beautiful. I mean, the amount of work it takes to get that right. And how many of these did you have to mess up just to get one that was right? And so for me, these kinds of coins, that's it. That's the epitome of cool is if you make a personal coin that has that personal touch. And whether it's you doing it by hand or the mint doing it for you, if it tells a story about you, that's the one I want. I've met people and I have their coin, and half the things we talk about, you see small reflections of that in their coin.
Yeah, that's a memory. That's a representation of a memory right there.
Yep. Yeah, for me, that's why I said that one that Caching Karen up in New Hampshire, she's counted cross-stitching these little pieces of cloth to make her little geocaching symbol and to put her name underneath of it. And I found it after climbing an icy waterfall in the middle of January in the White Mountains in New Hampshire. And so I was like, that's cool. Everything about that trip, every time I see that coin, like all the memories of that come back to me.
That is very cool. Yeah,
that is awesome.
I like those things.
So money aside, have you had more fun? And you may not even be able to answer this, right? But do you think you have more fun helping somebody design their own personal coin, or one for a large event? I guess it kind of depends on the design, but
I think it's tough. That's a really tough question. I love being the hands for someone else's imagination. And a lot of times that's kind of the conversation we have is like, I know what I want, but I don't know how to get it down onto paper, or I don't know how to get it into the computer.
Right.
And some of the best ideas ever are literally, scratches on napkin, with a crayon or pencil. Just, this is the idea. I've had so many design ideas come to me. They were like stick figures. I want a person here. I want a dog here. How do I make it look like that? I want it to look like I'm walking down the trail, but the dogs are in front of me. How do we do that? And so I love, a big part of what I do is I offer these online sessions where I can put one of my monitors. I work on several monitors. But I put the sort of, my tools are on side monitors, but my main monitor that has the artwork, I could put it up online in a private session. And so I can talk to somebody on the phone and we could work out how we want to put those things into it. And I think the ability to do that, the internet has made it amazing. They've made it kind of like, so you're sitting down at a drafting desk with me and we can write together. And that collaboration is always the best. When that level of collaboration is available for an event, it's the same kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think that's tough, because the biggest thing holding you back is a good idea. One of my all-time favorite quotes is Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work there is, and it's why so few endeavor in it. Because that's where the work is, the thinking. And so a lot of times it's that process of how, what do I want to put on my coin is one of the things I love to tell people is like, start with a list of what's most important to you about caching, about being outdoors. What do you love about caching? What are the things that drew you to caching, or why did it fit into your life? Make that list and then look at it hard, give it some real thought, set it aside for a day or two, come back and look at it again. And you realize the list is out of order. And they'll reorder it, and then they'll look at it a few days again later and they'll reorder it. And it's an amazing clarifying moment for the cacher. And for me, I get to know them a little bit better too, which is kind of great. And then we can prioritize where things fit into the theme of their coin. So, and they're like, well, I like, tulips and peanut butter, but that doesn't go together. And no, it does. We're going to make it go together.
It's going to fit.
We're going to make this work, and it's all about creatively making those things work. But brainstorming is probably the most fun part of coin designing. And then it's a matter of, if I'm working by myself, like with a club coin or something, a lot of times it's something I saw, something that inspired me, it'll be the weirdest things. We made a great holiday coin a few years back, and I don't know what caught my attention, but it was a flyer on a table at a restaurant for Budweiser was giving away a motorcycle or something. But I saw that little table tent and I took a picture of it. I'm like, there's just something about that I like. Yeah. It ended up being, a holiday themed coin, but there was just ideas lead to ideas, and a lot of times that's kind of like how it starts, I like that. The F-16 started as a life and drawing on a napkin at a bar. That's
exactly.
Some of those ideas is brilliant. And a lot of times, you hear these ideas, I would love to, but I know it's not possible. And then you start thinking about it, you're like, well, hey, what if we did this? Or maybe we looked at it this way. And so I love, you mentioned these gadget coins. A lot of those coins kind of start like those ideas. What if? How do we do this? I know it's impossible, but, and I think a lot of times it's just, that's where it starts. If you stick to the dream, it will somehow manifest itself before you're done.
Well, that leads us perfectly into the question we've been wanting to ask anyway, right? So if somebody's going to design one, they've gone through, they know what's important to them now, what are the limits? There's got to be some limits, right? Like there's got to be something out there.
Size is probably the first thing.
Okay.
And a lot of times, and this is one of the things that's kind of really important that a lot of people don't realize. They're like, how is it that something, that's this big,
Right.
it's 3 times as much as this big, even though it's, not that much big, different in total size.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when the mint looks at a coin, they look at the 2 most far parts of the coin. So if the perfectly round diameter, they're looking from side to side.
Okay.
This one you say, oh, well, then that must be from here to here. But
Right.
it's actually from here to here because diagonally it's just a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens is you have this die. They make this big steel encasement with the imprint on it. And they have to put a collar on that.
Okay.
Because when they come down and smash that metal, everything wants to go away from all the pressure coming down.
Right.
So if you have a corner that goes too close to the edge, where's it going to break?
Right.
At that corner.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever your furthest outside corner is, they have to put that much more metal around it. So when you have that rectangular piece and it goes to the diameter corner, then you keep adding this material. But as you add a material, it's exponentially more volume of metal, which means your die gets more expensive.
Right.
So it's really the die that's
right.
hurting you when it comes to creating the size.
So for like these Woodstock ones,
Right. So it would be
it's actually all the way out.
tool.
Yeah.
Whichever tool is the longest, and I mean I think they're the same, but yeah, the farthest tip on the on the one end of the walking stick or the ice axe to the other tip, that's the outside measurement.
Right.
And so there's a cost to having a cool, non-round edge, and that's part of it.
Something like this Moga coin that has.
That is cool too.
Did you do this one, by the way? I didn't even ask you.
I didn't. I saw one.
Saw one like this
one a little while ago, and I said, "That's
pretty cool." It's
nice job.
But what about these? Like for the holes, do they have to then come back and machine those parts out?
So I'm not sure about that one because I haven't held it in hand. But a lot of times, what happens is when you get these really odd edges, they go from being a stamped piece to a cast piece.
Okay.
And the difference is now instead of having those 2 pieces that slam together, now they have the 2 pieces, and they'll those side pieces, they're still under high pressure, but those side pieces will have 3 holes drilled in one side where these extremely high pressure rods, these sort of tubes, straws, will go on the side, and they will, under extreme pressure, force liquid metal through and out the other side. And it'll just start spinning out like straws on the other side. Once they've blown all the air through, they stop, take it out, break it off, shave off those pieces, those little straw tips, kind of like your old plastic models. The whole part came in the frame, and then they will polish that up and remove it. But they can, by forcing it around those corners, you can go around holes. Oh, okay. If it's a perfectly round hole, then often they can drill it to match. But when it's something unusual like that, it's usually because it's cast or it's pressure cast, or in the case of one like this, it's spin cast.
Oh, okay.
So for this one, the issue with this one was that we wanted this little tip of the wing, whereas this one, to stick out.
Right.
And this was kind of early on in my design days. I didn't really know what it meant to ask for that. And not only to have the wings stick out, but I wanted the spine of the coin to actually look like an actual spine.
Oh, wow.
And to do that, you're looking at, you can see on the left, there's multiple levels on the outside.
Yeah.
And so when you look at a regular stamp, it comes together, it has to separate and not break any of those pieces in the middle.
Right.
And if I understand the process correctly, there's sort of a heat resistant silicone that they use to give you that full 3D edge. And they insert the liquid metal under pressure into it. And that mold shakes around, and it shakes the metal out into those fine tips on the edges.
Right.
And that's basically spun at high speed like a centrifuge, and it pushes the metal out as they keep adding it to the middle. And so you get a nice thick coin, but it has a full 3D edge.
Right. That is pretty amazing.
And so that was the first time I'd ever worked with spin casting, but that was pretty cool. That was a neat idea.
When it comes to those items, is that where price can start to become a little bit higher because of the process?
It can, but generally it comes back to the size. It's surprisingly, I thought that would be a bigger issue, but it's really not. There's usually, we're talking pennies or, dimes, per coin difference for that kind of stuff. One of the biggest things that I didn't realize it until early on was that one of the biggest single items that you can do to add cost to a coin is the type of enamel. Imitation hard enamel or soft clay zone. Those are the ones that are kind of like smooth, like glass on the surface.
Yeah.
All right. Those ones, they're heavier and they look cool, but they're a lot harder process, and they take a lot more time and energy at the mint to actually create them. So basically they fill these up, kind of overfill them with enamel, and they hold them against a smooth polishing surface that grinds them smooth like glass, like polishing rock, and that's a lot of extra work. Whereas with the soft enamel, they could fill it, bake it, and give it a quick polishing, and it's good to go.
Right.
So different process. The upside is you get a lot more colors in translucent enamels with hard enamel.
Okay.
The downside is the expense, and sometimes you don't always get what you think it's going to be. And there are a couple tricks to overcoming that. There's a couple new techniques using epoxy resin fills over soft enamels that give you the same look and feel of hard enamel, but at a fraction of the cost.
Wow.
And that's just one of those things that you learn by doing it. That latest turtle coin that he did, the Flight of the Navigators for the Geocoin Club.
Right.
A lot of people thought that was IHE, and it's not. It's actually soft enamel that just has a clear epoxy resin over it. And translucent enamels are really cool. They're kind of like Jello, right? When you look at them, you look right through them, and the color of the Jello shows on the plate below it. If you add a clear epoxy resin over that colored enamel, it kind of just brings that color right up through it.
Oh, right.
So it looks like it's full up, and so you get that kind of look of the IHE with translucence, but you're only paying for the cost of soft enamel.
Right. But you can also kind of take advantage of using the same color in different spots. I was looking at this treasure coin that you did. I love this treasure coin. I mean, it's
a lot of fun. It's a big coin.
It's a huge coin.
Yeah. I mean, when we were talking about size, I'm like, really? That sounds really big. They're like, nah, it's gotta be at least that big.
Yeah, and there's so much going on with that.
Sounds really big. Yeah.
Well, one of the things about it too is the fact that it's got this maroon color, but he used the same color just in different places. So I guess you could sort of take advantage sometimes of that possibility, because you did, he's not adding a bunch of extra color. It's just that he's using it in different locations.
And generally you're paying per color. If you're using less than a half dozen colors, it may not really affect your price much at all. I have had coins where they got up to 14, 15, 16 colors per side. And that's when it's like, all right, that's getting ridiculous. It's because it's taking a lot of extra work, because I imagine, I couldn't confirm because I was not there in the room doing it, but I imagine you have an artist or a crafter who's working on the application table where they're adding that color. And, for each color, you probably have another person working, because they're dedicated to doing just that part of the color on a coin.
Right.
So, you're adding a whole nother step and a whole nother series of work to be done. So yeah, reusing colors is a big deal. It saves your cost. And a lot of times it just makes your coin look better when you don't get too lost in overdoing the color.
Is there a limit to the number of colors somebody could use? Maybe it wouldn't be advisable, but
I have seen in my own designs, I try to keep it under 10 if I can. I have gone as high as, between 14 and 16 on occasion. But if I do that, it's usually for a very specific reason. It's not just for the sake of using lots of color. A lot of times it's hard to get good solid matches and variation between colors too. I mean, there's part of it's, you're looking through a Pantone color chart. It's kind of like when you go to the Ethan Allen paint counter and there's 3,000 colors, but you have to tell the mint, to the umpteenth degree exactly which color. And so we've got color books that we go through and we have to match it. And I do histogram checks against what's on the computer monitor and what that matches to in a real life color. And there's a bit of a science to it that goes to that. But yeah, that's color. I think early on I wanted to use as much color as I could because I didn't understand how important it was to restrain yourself. And I found later on that some of my favorite coins only have 1 or 2 colors, but they're used much more intelligently or more artfully. And I think those are some of the ones that I like the most. Like Declan Clan has the Deception Pass Bridge coin. That's still one of my all-time favorite coins. And I think it's just 2 colors.
Wow.
It's white and yellow on an antique copper, and it's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now the
size, shape, colors.
this one's got the little doodad on the back, which I know we're getting into a lot of those, but it's got a.
That's what I was going to ask next. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that one's is that still called a Sherpa coin if it's got 1 coin rest? I don't know. I've heard that before, right?
That is the funniest thing. I forget why we initially called it that.
I've heard it several times though, but
and that came out a long time ago. We said something else like because one was acting as a Sherpa for the other coin. It was carrying the gear.
Oh yeah.
And initially people thought we were talking about the design. We were talking about the idea of something backpacking, an extra weight on its back. It was carrying something on its back. And that's where that idea came through. And, initially we did it. We had a couple ideas. They didn't work as smooth as we thought they might. But over time, we realized there's a lot of really brilliant ways to use that, and you started seeing a lot of magnets in coins over time.
Yeah.
Like this one, which I think still is my wife's favorite coin. This one's fascinating because it comes apart.
Well, and what Gary's showing is a locket coin, but it looks like there's 3 pieces of it. And it's a hard locket coin.
Yep. There's the top part.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the shackle and then the 2 bases.
Okay.
See, I never knew that was what it was called. That's another part of doing the coins that I love. You learn new stuff.
There you go.
That loop is called a shackle.
Shackle. It comes apart. So you give part to somebody else and you get 1 part. And when you
most importantly, each of those 2 parts has the same tracking code.
Oh, does it?
You trade it with another cashier who also has a heart, say in a different color.
Oh yeah.
You end up with a 2-color heart with 2 tracking codes.
Oh yeah.
That's cool.
And once that happens, maybe they trade it to someone that has a green colored one, and now you switch it out.
Yeah.
And it happens again and again. And so through the love of cashing, you end up doing a bunch of trading with people wearing the similar locket.
Yeah. I love that.
I think there's about 15 or 20 different colors.
Oh, I love it. That's awesome.
That's pretty neat.
So now that's multi pieces now. So that's one more level. What else would be a limitation or something that maybe not even a limitation, but something people probably don't even realize they could do as part of a coin?
So that's in fact, I took it off because I was going down the Delaware River today. I was rafting. I wear one on my hand. We made one that's a watch band.
Oh, cool.
Oh, wow.
And so the idea was to make something that was simple, understated, but it could easily be identified and you could wear it all the time. The idea was to remind you on a daily, have you found your cash today? There's always time for caching. So that idea. So a lot of times it comes down to when you're talking about, what is there a limitation? Mostly it's finding a clever way to use the existing, techniques and or pushing those techniques a little bit further. Mm-hmm. So for us, we found out, hey, we could do this, make this sort of like a watch case, or the head watch face where you would have a trackable on the back or on the side. we said, hey, that's a great idea. We can even get it drilled where the little pins will go in it, and we put a nice watch band on it. And it came with a actually really comfortable one that's pretty sturdy that I've worn for about a year now, and it's just now starting to get beat beyond usefulness. But I'll upgrade it to like a patent leather or something soon and make it look pretty. But the idea of wearing it all the time, I said, well, if you're going to have this on all the time, then it also needs to be curved.
Right.
And so then that really threw us for a loop, because do you curve it before or after you add the enamel? Because now we're adding a liquid enamel that wants to run.
Yeah.
Liquid. And so how do you get it to stay in there? And so a lot of times it's, it's a little bit of leap of faith, a little bit of good guesstimation, I guess, hypothesis, and then being very patient and polite to the mint, because they're taking your crazy idea and trying to make it a reality. Mm-hmm. And so if you could make it as easy as possible for them, that makes it that much more likely that it's going to come out well. If they're excited about the project, it's going to go faster and easier, smoother. You're going to get better results. So that's a big part. I think is finding clever ways to use existing technology is a big thing. The watch band was one of those.
That's really cool.
We were talking before, the
belt buckle.
Oh yeah, the belt buckle. You can make a belt buckle.
That's cool.
The Geocoin, that's the water table that has the elevation, used it as a tool. So it was funny, like doing the research for Lewis and Clark. They talked about some of the problems that they had with going east to west was that they had navigation tools that worked on water. And now here they are out in the middle of the woods, going up and down mountains, trying to make things work. And they had to kind of devise whole new ways to do things. Mm. And so learning about the tools they used changed my ideas about the coin. And so now it's, how do I make that work in a coin? And so for me, it was finding a clever way to make a coin that actually held water. And the coin holds water and works as a tool. And so, it takes a bit of work. It was a Tri-Cities geocaching in Washington State. They have this amazing event every summer, and they do these crazy coin ideas. And this is one of those clients where no idea is too crazy to try. And so, at one point I had somebody using, a cardboard toilet paper roll tube and an iPhone to take a picture because I needed to know where the final cache location would be. And the idea was you would go around over the course of this day and you would pick up different parts of the coin as you went through the event. Oh, wow. And when you got to the final stages of the event, you would put all the pieces together into this coin, and you would stand in the right place and turn and survey with the right distance from your face, the same as you would be with that. It was actually a paper towel roll, like 12 inches. So it had to be the right distance from your eye to look through that sight lens. And if you changed it, it would match up and with the landscape, kind of like they called it the Goonies coin, or people were calling it the Goonies coin, because it was the same idea. You would match up the landscape, and when all 5 of those pieces went together, they all crisscrossed in the center, and they built a circle that showed you where the final location was. Awesome. You had to stand in the right piece, in the right place, have all the right parts in the right order, and you would look through it and find something. Wow. And so for, again, having a client that's willing to take crazy ideas like that and try it makes a huge difference. But also, that's something we already knew how to make a coin. We know how sight works. So now we just have to combine it and make it work. And so that was a huge challenge, but it went through wonderfully. And I think one of the best comments I heard was one of the volunteers working there said, I've never seen so many middle-aged guys who look like 6-year-old kids, looking through this and just super excited that it worked. Yeah. And I said, that's the best. That's the best thing I could hear, is that people were excited about it. Yeah. It was more than just another pretty coin.
But before we wrap up, as we start to wrap up tonight, mm-hmm. What email address would you like me to give tonight to people that might want to get in touch with you? Is it the R Design Group one, or?
Yeah, it's Chris at auradesigngroup.com or auradesigngroup@hotmail.com.
Okay, I'll put that one up on the screen.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure, so I'll leave that up for a moment. So wow, there are some amazing things. You know, can you do? Go ahead.
I was going to say I kind of got sidetracked, which I tend to because I get excited about coins.
It's okay.
But we were talking about the cost of doing coin. A lot of people, that's a big concern. Like, how do I afford to do this? I think one of the big things is to remember a coin doesn't have to be designed today and produced tomorrow. You could design a coin now, and it may take a little time to do it. You know, if you have a good idea, it might be done in days. If you have a vague idea and we need to talk about it and gel on it for a while, it may be done in weeks. But you can get that part of it done. And once you have a plan, you have a blueprint, now it's just about going to the next step. But once you have a blueprint, the next step can be just getting samples. And so you bite off a piece and you work with that, you know, within your budget, and you bite off a piece and you get those samples and you make sure that it looks right. Once you get your samples, those dies are built. Now you have like 3 years to actually produce it, because those dies are waiting on the shelf for you to say go.
Right.
Now, prices may change a little bit, but they don't tend to fluctuate too much. But you could take a piece at a time and a piece at a time. A lot of times I ask, you know, do I have to do, like, if I do 200 coins, do they all have to be trackable? And the answer is no. You could make 50 of them trackable, and the rest could be sequentially numbered. You could do them and make the trackable versions in one metal color, and the sequential collector versions in another metal color. You could, there's a ton of options. And a lot of times, if you kind of have an idea of what you're willing to invest in your personal marker, a lot of times that's more important than the end goal, because we can get to the end goal regardless of the budget. Right. You may have to cut corners as far as like, well, not cut corners even really, like, you know, okay, we can't use 15 colors. We're going to use 5, but we're going to use 5 smartly. And because we know we can only use 5, you're still going to have a design that's just as cool as if you'd used 15, because we knew from advance and we designed it around that. Instead of using that as sort of a barrier, we use that as a tool to make it better. And so I think a lot of it is just kind of planning out in advance, knowing that you don't have to do it all at once. Doing it in steps makes a huge difference. And you can bite off those steps. You know, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But you have to take the first bite to get started. And a lot of times it's just sitting down, talking about it, talking about what's important to you for your coin.
Is it ourdesigngroup.com is the website as well?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I'll put that up while.
So if somebody is thinking about getting into this, and this is not a exact amount, right, or time, but if they're just thinking of I want this done by Christmas, should people be thinking, not this Christmas. No,
Christmas 2021.
Not this one. I'm saying say I want it done for a special event, whether it's Christmas or my birthday or whatever else, or I have a big event that I want to do next year or whatever else. Yeah. They're making their own personal coin. Do they need to, what's a general idea, rule of thumb, like I need $8 million and 4 years to design it, or maybe a little less than that? I mean, like, yeah. Like if they're doing standard basic
price wise, I mean, the average, say it's 1.75 round, which is kind of the normal average size. You absolutely have to have it trackable, and it has to have an icon, and it has to be, it has to have an average number of colors or whatever, and be in 3 different metals. And oddly enough, doing a bunch of different metals doesn't usually change the price. You just, it's the total number that seems to be more important. The prices can fluctuate slightly between colors, but not enough to make a difference. Not one that matters. But if it's non-trackable, you could probably get it in under $1,000. And if it's trackable and you're going all out, you could probably still get it in for under 14 or 15. Yeah. So, and I know that sounds like a lot, but at the same time, it sounds like a lot when you're looking at it as all one piece. But if you buy and collect coins on a regular basis, this is really good for you, because now you have a coin. Instead of going out and buying every coin you see, you're trading for those. A lot of times I've gone to coins or gone to events and someone says, I love this coin you have. I'm this, that's in your trading box, but I don't have I don't have, that or anything to trade. And I said, well, go grab one of the event coins and we'll trade.
Yeah.
So I made a coin that might have cost me $8 or $9 for the coin. I'm trading for an event coin that might cost $12 or $14. So I just got the coin I wanted.
Yeah.
Using the coin I made, and I'm $4 ahead of the game. And say you did that at a dozen events and 20 or 30 personal trades in the first year. Well, all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm trading my personal coin for one that I've been trying to get forever, but the only place I ever see it's on eBay for 35 or 40 bucks. But someone just traded it to me for the coin that I made for 10 bucks.
Yeah.
So if you're part of that community, you want to be in that and you want to do that on a regular basis, you literally start saving money once you have your own piece.
Right.
That helps. That helps a lot. A lot of times the big thing that's kind of everybody gets stuck on is the price. How soon can I dive in? Am I really worth to do it? And I like to point out that if you ever seen someone who made the personal coin, within a year or two, you usually see them make another one. Why would they jump in on it again so fast if it wasn't a good idea?
Right.
Generally, it is. It pays off in time. And it's not so much about the money either. It pays off in that you meet a whole new circle of people that are even tighter in that community. People share. People are incredibly generous in that community.
Right.
Things I have had things come back. Karma is wildly at work in the coin community. It's a good thing. I have never seen that not turn out better more often than bad.
Yeah.
It is an investment, but it's part of the game, just like everything else, right? If you're in part of the game and you're buying coins and you're trading for coins.
So we talked a little bit earlier. I said when we were talking about that coin that disappeared and reappeared again 4 years later.
Yeah.
So one of the things I worked for a long time. I worked in television, and I would work for months for something that would be seen for 30 seconds on television, because it was in a commercial and then it was gone. It would run for a few weeks and be gone. You never see it again. No one knew you did it.
Yeah.
And so I had done that for almost 20 years before I really started doing coins. And I said something to my wife about, I said, sometimes I wonder if I'm doing the right thing. I feel like I'm doing all this work and no one will ever remember my artwork, after all this time I poured into it. She said, what are you talking about? She said, unless someone goes out and gathers up every coin you ever designed and grinds it into dust, it's going to be on this planet forever. And it was kind of like an aha moment, because I was thinking about all the print work and animation work and things that I had done that was on film or printed as my artwork. And she was looking at my coins as what my real artwork was.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, that's pretty cool. If you make a personal coin, your coin is going to be here thousands of years from now.
Right.
Floating around in some archaeologist's den or in a museum or something. But you literally become a permanent part of history on this planet.
That's awesome.
And that's a personal coin, and it's only with a personal coin does that happen. How cool is that? You might as well have left your dinosaur footprint on the earth that said, Chris was here.
Yeah.
And I said,
that's a pretty cool way to think about that.
That is pretty cool. You
That's
are
awesome.
forever a part of this. Nobody can take it away once it's made. That's not going to happen. You're out there now. That's pretty cool.
That is cool.
I think that's a good place to wrap up tonight.
It's hard to beat that. So
It's hard to beat that. Let's wrap up, and thanks everybody, and we'll see you here in a minute with the outro.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight, as well as our new format. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.
Chris, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It was fun. We'll see everybody next time.
Excited. They were asking tons of I couldn't even get to all the questions.
I know. We had so many. We'll do it again.
Pepper me. I'm on Facebook too. So, they could just pepper me away with questions over there. I answer questions all day on Messenger at Facebook.
That's great. Yep.
So, yeah.
Good night, everybody.